Yo, 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 it's M.I.A. Radio.
Yes, we are back for a big one.
The big one.
The big one, the 100.
100, we made it.
You got it? You're going to say it or not?
Cien. We always got to say it in Spanish.
Yes.
But we decided we need to bring in the big guns for the 100th episode.
Yes. Miami legend. I mean, no introduction needed.
We need to give him a little introduction. I had to write it down because there were so many things that he's
many
done.
hats.
He's a DJ. Yeah. He's a producer. He's a podcast host, maybe one of the biggest podcasts. He's a director, an A&R, a label owner, and there's probably some other things, but we got DJ EFN
in the building.
In his building.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Thank you for coming to my building, guys. I appreciate it.
We are in Kendall. I am in Kendall. Rare. Y'all know that it's rare for me to come to Kendall, so I'm here.
Welcome to Kendall.
This is like the farthest we've ever
Last time I was here, I went to Don Carter's.
Coño, that's a long time ago. That shit's out of here.
Nah. But yeah, man, we wanted to have you on the show because, like we were saying earlier, we like to showcase to our audience how DJs have been able to, carve their own lane or do multiple things, not just DJ.
Right.
And everyone has seen you, with Drink Champs, with Nori and all that, but they don't know like all the history and the years of grind that you put in and how many of the other shit that I mentioned that you do. So we just kind of wanted to, make sure people know your story and
appreciate it.
And yeah, talk about your life and how you got to where you are now, basically.
And congrats on the 100th episode.
Appreciate it, bro.
Really
you guys were definitely an inspiration to us.
Yeah, facts.
Starting a podcast.
Drink Champs is the staple, for podcasts and for Miami and everything. And so there's multiple angles, and we always watch it, and it's an inspiration because you guys, I like the flow, and me and Zaya, we're different, and it's like you and Nori are
we're yin and yang. Yeah.
It's kind of similar with us because like I'm the one that's always instigating, and then he's the one that's like checking. So and you're the one that's always like, all right, let's get back, let's get back to this, So it's to us, it's huge. Like it's to have you on, and thank you.
No, it's my pleasure, man.
Sure. So if you could kind of break it down, how you even got into DJing or
shit. I don't know how far back you guys want to go, but. Let's just say I'm a high school kid. I went originally to Killian, for folks in Miami that know about the high school, but I got kicked out of Killian. They were gonna send me to MacArthur. I don't know if you know about MacArthur.
Right.
So, but I ended up going. My mom figured it out. I ended up going to Sunset. I had to do a deal that I had to go to ROTC and shit like that.
Okay.
And I was gonna in my head I was gonna be a Marine. My dad was a Marine, Vietnam vet. So I was like, yeah, no problem. So in that time frame, I'm really a big hip hop head. I'm going to, like, my goal at that time was not to pursue anything in hip hop, but just to be the ultimate hip hop fan and supporter of the local scene more than anything else. So I'm doing that with my crew. Shout out to Crazy Hood. At that point, we were a crew called KPB, which was a joke name, but we kept it, called Kendall Park Boys. Because we would go and play ball at Sugarwood was the main park we were at.
Right.
But we would go to different parks and play basketball, and then they would be like, when we would leave Kendall, they'd be like, these motherfucking Kendall Park Boys, And I liked it, so I kept it. So at that time, I wanted to DJ. The DJ spoke to me, and the dynamic of like DJ and MC on stage and videos. And I couldn't really rap also. So I wasn't a good B-boy, I wasn't a good graffiti artist. I tried all the elements, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we all did. Everybody's always kind of like, and then the one or two things that you're good at, you kind of like go from there.
So DJing, I just thought that ultimately the DJ role was just dope, like it controlled the vibe. It was like the silent control of everything when it came to like hip hop and hip hop culture. It is the beginning of hip hop culture.
Yeah.
So at first I had 2 tape decks because I couldn't afford turntables, and I would do pause tapes and give them out to the homies. And then eventually the back of the Source magazine, they had a DJ starter kit with 2 belt drive Gemini turntables and a little mixer. Couldn't tell me nothing. Those were my joints, And I talk about this a lot. I had remember I don't know if you guys are younger, but there was a record store called Peaches. No. Back in the days, there was a record store called Peaches. And they had these crates that they would sell, these wooden crates for records. And they had one little record section where you could buy records. And I bought the crate, and I remember having like 10, 15, maybe 20 records in the crate. Didn't even fill it, halfway. And I remember saying to myself, man, one day I'm going to fill this crate.
Right.
And I'm going to be ill with this full crate of records. And, you know, just fast forward, like when I was able to finally get my Technique 1200s and then I started to, as I'm graduating high school, think of like pursuing something within the realm of music and hip hop. And our goal as Crazy Hood, once we formed Crazy Hood in 93, was to really be a part of the story, the Miami hip hop story, and kind of like help develop our hip hop scene, which was kind of, in a sense, underdeveloped.
Right.
In terms of identity, like the identity of our hip hop scene, specifically the hip hop, was very New York centric.
Right.
Back then, who were like the main artists coming out of Miami?
You had an amazing artist, which I talk about a lot, Mother Superior, that she had a song called Rock Bottom. So if anybody ever says the bottom of the map or the bottom, it comes from her.
Okay.
You know, which people don't remember anymore.
We say that a lot.
Yeah, we say it a lot.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Yeah.
Yeah, she was, they used to call her the female Nas.
Wow.
This is how dope she was. And she got signed to a major label, which was huge, off of underground radio. And then she had an album that had production by all the top producers at the time, including production by Karis One, including features by Redman. And this is like, at that time, this is crazy.
Yeah,
her first music video was directed by the GZA, this is when Wu-Tang's at its height. You know, she ended up getting shelved, that album. And I always talk about, if that album would have came out, it would have changed the landscape and sound of Miami hip hop and the whole South. I think it would have been a big part of an identity that we would have kept, you know, in terms of like lyrics and that type of stuff. So you had Mother Superior, you had Society, who was signed to Luke Records. He came by way of Professor Griff, which is Public Enemy. He was originally from New York, but he moved to Miami and he owned up to being like a Miami dude, you know. So he had a dope ass record called Yes Indeed. I'm sure you've had to have heard this record. Yes Indeed. It was a pretty big record. And then we had Those Funky Bastards and Black Forest and Be Dope and Mike Ripper, and we had like this really bubbling underground scene back then.
Right.
That was starting to be proud of being Miami, but it was like when I came in, people weren't proud to be from Miami.
Right.
So when it came to DJing, eventually when I started looking around, like what could I do as a DJ? Like I knew I wanted to be a DJ. Now I got turntables. I'm practicing my ass off. What could I do? What lane do I have? Already around when I was just a fan and I'm going to like the first hip hop clubs in Miami, shout out to the Zoo, which was a club in the Grove. I had seen this little kid walk up to the stage at a DJ battle and destroy it, DJ Craze.
Of course.
And then he went on to be DMC World Champion. By the time I'm already starting to like figure out what I'm gonna do, he's already like champion.
Right.
I'm like, I'm definitely not doing that shit. Like this guy's
that's
fucking
DJing.
like I am never gonna do that.
That lane was
that's superhero shit. Like I'm not doing that. And then at that time, DJ Epps was killing the game on the club scene.
Right.
Even from, again, before we even got serious, he was already in the parties and stuff, doing stuff. So I'm like, okay, the party scene, the club scene, that's already covered. Radio wasn't a thing in Miami yet in terms of hip hop. It was underground radio or college radio, and I dabbled in both of them.
Right.
But mixtapes wasn't a thing. Like it hadn't developed itself out here. We would get all these mixtapes from New York, and they were dope, but they were talking about New York shit. You know what I'm saying? So like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna make mixtapes that reference Miami hoods and have Miami reference titles and put on Miami underground artists in the intros. But I'm gonna give you the same thing you like about these mixtapes as much as I can, but I'm gonna sprinkle it with Miami stuff. And that's where I found my lane, and that's kind of how I started to make inroads.
How were you putting these mixtapes together back then? Because all you were just listening to the New York guys and trying to
not just New York, I mean, but most of them were from New York. These mixtapes, because we had one of the biggest mixtape distributors in the world out of South Florida called Hip Hop Connection that a lot of people don't know about. This dude was the first dude to get raided by the feds when it came to like hip hop shit.
Yeah.
For like basically, you know, bootlegging and whatnot. But he was official with all the mixtape DJs. It was just the whole mixtapes were illegal. And he got raided, his bank account's frozen, you know, they fucking raided him like he was Al-Qaeda and shit.
What was it that they used to say? It was like pay for the artwork and get free music.
Right.
They would put that on.
Or for promotional use only.
Right.
Yeah. I had a lawyer that he's like, you're crazy for doing this shit.
Nah, because I remember, I was living in Texas back then. Well, this is 2000s mixtape days. And I would order, you know, Southern Smoke and Ideals and all that stuff. And it was always like, you're buying the cover, you're buying the artwork, or free sticker. With the purchase of a sticker, free CD.
Right.
you know, and then you obviously knew or whatever. So there was always those loopholes.
But that all came by way of what happened to this dude with Hip Hop Connection, because it hadn't happened up until that point. Yeah. And this is the cassette era of mixtapes. Wow. And that's the era that I start making, doing my thing, which that's my favorite era when it came to mixtapes, because when someone bought your tape, your cassette tape, they really were into you as a DJ, because you couldn't easily fast forward to the next track. Like you were into like how they mixed, how they blended, what songs they picked. You had to really be invested in that DJ. So that it made me feel like that era was special for mixtape DJs.
Right.
And so you asked me how I put them together, right?
Because you were taking a lot of time into those.
Yes. So I mean, straight up, it was all vinyl related. And I would end up driving out. One of my homeboys would scrape up some cash, and we'd drive up the East Coast, starting in Atlanta, and go to record stores, buy all white labels and records that just came out and came back down, and they hadn't gotten down to Miami yet, or people weren't checking for it yet. They didn't even know what it was, that it was coming, and I would put out these mixtapes, and it was all fucking brand new shit, exclusive. So I would just mix straight up off of vinyl. Eventually, I got a 4-track, which helped me do like intros and add extra layers to the mixtape. But it was all usually like one takes that I was doing on vinyl. And at first I was trying to be like, perfectionist. And I remember hearing Funk Flex eventually put out an album that was him mixing, right? And he fucked up on the fucking album. Yeah. On the actual album that came out through Def Jam, I think. Or no, actually this one didn't come out. It came out through another label, the first one, I think. But he fucked up on it. Like the record skipped or some shit happened, and it was an official release. And I was like, you know what, man? If this motherfucker don't give a fuck, like,
fuck it.
Because what happens to me is like, perfectionism is cool, but it doesn't get shit done.
Exactly.
So I was like, all right, man. So I would do one take, and sometimes a record would skip. I didn't like it, but I was like, if everything else was dope and all the other mixes were on point, I'm like, I'm not gonna go back and do it all over because of that one skip. Right. I'm like, it's vinyl. It is what it is.
It sounds more organic. And it sounds more real.
Right.
Even to this day, like I put out live mixes all the time, and like I like to hear those errors, and as a listener, same thing back then. They're probably like, yo, this is some real shit. Like it's not just made, so it gives it that taste always of
right.
It's like that personal touch from the DJ. Yep. It's not like now everyone kind of produces
personal touch from the turntable.
Because now everyone produces a mixtape on Ableton or Pro Tools.
No,
or
it's
whatever.
Just perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it like loses that like natural aspect of it.
Yeah.
But so you were doing mixtapes, and every time we talk about like mixtapes in Miami, it's like you're the godfather. Yeah. Like you're the guy.
There was other people that did it, but they didn't do it consistently.
Right.
So like when I feel bad because I've gotten people who are like, yo, I had this mixtape from so-and-so from Miami. Like, yeah, one fucking mixtape from so-and-so Miami. It was dope, but he didn't do it consistently.
Right.
That was where I said, nah, I'm going to do this consistently. I'm going to compete with these other mixtapes. And I did. And what happened was that because our like radio scene was underdeveloped, the labels, they didn't have many outlets to promote records out here. So someone like me doing mixtapes was one of their like first places to go to test records, to get records out, to buzz a new artist. And I started to get a lot of love from the label. So the Miami Mixtape King, actually came from label execs and out-of-towners before it came from Miami heads. Because you know how it is. In your own city, people kind of like going to hate.
Always, right. Yeah.
So these guys are like, you're the Miami Mixtape King. I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, all right, whatever. But it was because I was their outlet. I was their go-to guy because radio wasn't developed. There was no real mix show yet doing it consistently. Right. And I did it all, too. I did mixtapes. I did underground radio. And I was doing parties and clubs, at the time.
What were the party and clubs looking like back then?
In the beginning, we would do our own shit. Like the first parties that I spun at was my own like crazy hood events that we did. And like one was at this hotel hotel like lounge that was over there by the jail. That hotel got tore down already.
Sounds fun.
That was my first party was the first thing I did even before DJing, which was down the street from here at a warehouse. And that shit got shot up. That was the first thing we ever did as Crazy Hood.
Holy shit.
How old were you?
17 probably.
Oh, wow.
17. It was right when I graduated. It was I didn't have my techniques yet, but we started Crazy Hood, and that was the first thing. Because creating these events was the only way to like contribute to the scene because we couldn't go to clubs. Yeah. Clubs weren't, and if the clubs were playing hip hop, they weren't letting hip hop heads in.
Yeah.
You know, it was like an exclusive, like, you know, not that scene for. I've been to a club and seen back in those days, met the man at the front door with his song playing, M.O.T., you know, M.E.T. man, and them not letting him in.
Wow. Holy shit.
And he's like, yo, that's my record. They're like, yeah, you don't have the dress code. Like,
you're not playing.
You fucking serious, bro?
And that was like South Beach and all that.
South Beach era. So we would do our own events. We would do our own parties. We'd rent out spaces, ballrooms, warehouses, down this area, ranch parties out in the boonies and the Redlands and whatnot. And then eventually, like, do you remember, I don't know if you guys remember a place called Freaky Fridays that the Eps used to do, Zen, Club Zen. Remember Zen? No? I think still too young for that one?
I wasn't here for a lot of that.
It was on 12th and Washington, this club there. And that was the more recent name that it had. And now it's a Starbucks, where there's a Starbucks there.
Oh, like right on the corner of Mansion and
So that used to be called something else, right? And it took me 2 months of going there to convince the owner of the club to let me do a hip hop night, one night. 2 months to convince them. Going back. There was a father and a son. They were from New York. The son, they were like, I think they were Turkish. The son was cool. He was like, yeah, I want to do it. The father was like, nah, fuck it, I don't want none of that shit here. Yeah. And eventually we did it. So that was one, and I broke that venue. And eventually after that one event, they ended up partnering up with Epps' crew, Night Breeders, and they started doing a party called Freaky Fridays, which was huge. Another club I used to DJ for was Union Bar, which was like on 12th and like 5th Ave or something like that. That was owned by the Mob.
Wow.
And I remember spinning hip hop there and them saying, we don't let Spicks and niggas in here.
Yeah.
I'm like,
am I good?
But you're cool. Oh, shit, bro. Yeah, so that didn't last long. So it was just a weird time frame, but eventually, because of like things like How Can I Be Down conference that used to come down in like 94, 95, different things, the beach, the hip hop kind of took over the beach at one point. But that's how we were like doing these events and stuff.
And then eventually, like a lot of more artists started popping out of Miami, and they were doing like these in club parties and all that type of stuff, right? I heard you had the in stores and all that, like when the artists would come through the city.
Yeah, that's how I met Nori, because he was doing the promo run for CNN for the Capone Noriega album. Capone was locked up. My boy Phil the Mayor, who does Live and Headliner Group and all those guys, he was an up and coming promoter. He was promoting the event that Nori was gonna I don't even know if it was a Capone Noriega part. I don't know what it was, but he was on his promo run, Nori. So he brought him to my store. I had a store called Crazy Goods. Right. Shout out to Eddie Giggs, who was a partner with me. And people used to come and do in stores to promote parties and stuff like that. And then I ended up doing Nori's first solo show, NORE, off of that album. Right. I was the first person to do that show with him out here in Miami, to bring him down. And then they hired me to do the event for Capone getting out of prison called the Pone Home Show, which was the reunion of Capone and Noriega, which I did at the same venue, which was Warsaw, which historically was a gay club. Yeah. Again, this is the it sounds weird now, but it's like we had to these are the places that we could do. I mean, it wasn't a gay night that we did. It just happened to be a gay club that let us do one hip hop night,
Nah, it's the turn. I mean, those nightlife turns have cycled many times. You know? Like we used to do all the EDM stuff where we couldn't play rap, and then when EDM went out the window, like you played anything up tempo, they're like, nah, like it's just the cycles. But how was the scene in Miami, in the Grove, besides outside of the beach? Like how was everything else? Like what else was popping, and like what was how would people find out? Like what was like the social media or how were you guys moving? Because that's always my question about the 90s.
Prior to internet
and all that.
Straight hitting the ground running. We would go we'd make our own flyers or press up flyers, posters, barbershops. The flea market was crucial. And just go out there. The schools, we just go to the schools when they get out and pass out flyers, We were all around the high school age still, so we were still going to high school. Later you graduate, you're going to Miami-Dade and you're passing out flyers. And that's how you got the word out. And the thing is, people were so hungry for hip hop related shit that the word got out.
Right.
And the reason why our shit got shot up is because in that time frame, there was only in reality a few thousand real hip hop heads in Miami. I always tell people it's akin to the goth kid in school. Those are the goth kids and those are the hip hop kids. Those are the jocks. like real hip hop. This is prior to hip hop becoming mainstream.
Right.
So you were into hip hop. You dressed it. You lived it. That's what it was. And so if you didn't know people personally from around the city, you saw them at the events and you kind of knew them by face. So the word would get out to all, that community of people, and they would come. And that's why we got the problem that we had in that event, because people from all different areas of Miami came, and then you had rival crews. Right. And there was a weird thing back then where like the gang scene in Miami and the hip hop scene were like a weird rivalry. And so then that's why we had a problem.
And you did all this with Crazy Hood, right?
Yeah, Crazy Hood. I mean, we were a little army, man. It was like 10, 15 of us. And that's what, how we could do things, because we would move like an army. And I studied, like, I really tried to position us and organize us in a way that would, because we were young, that we would be taken seriously, or that we would do serious things with little resources. We didn't have money, but we had numbers, which was ourselves. So we would like put in dues every month, and it wasn't a lot individually, but collectively it did the job. We would go together to promote. A bunch of us made a statement, and people recognize us. It was like a branding thing, and that's the way that we moved, man. We were very serious about what we were doing.
Yeah, I think I remember, like, because I started DJing around like when I was young, like 2006, 2007, in the all ages. But I was like, I was doing the all ages parties because that was like what the only thing I kind of had to do, and the mixtapes were kind of already ending. But I remember seeing them like, yo, who are these Crazy Hood guys? And like the first drop I ever got was from Garcia. Dope. And I remember every time I would go to like these little events or like car shows and stuff, like I would see all you guys with the shirts and like post it up. I'm like, yo, this team, I don't know what they do, but it says Crazy Hood.
Yeah.
So they must be crazy.
Nah, always. I mean, me back, same thing. I was in Texas back then, and like, looking at everybody, I kept tabs on everybody. Now it'd always be like Crazy Hood and Garcia and all that. Like I'd be like, yo, these guys are deep. Like you guys, like it was you guys were known. It was always that, and it's like the branding behind it has always been like it kind of in your face. Like, yo, we're here, and fuck with us.
And you guys, you and Crazy Hood also did like movies and music videos. And how did you guys get into like all that different type of stuff?
It was just making sure that we could do everything we could ourselves, you know what I'm saying? And again, within our resources. So Garcia ended up doing some film stuff in Miami-Dade, like taking classes. So he came back with some of that knowledge, and we started dabbling with stuff. And, we would do our videos with our friends, like Jokes, and these people who went on to do big things, Gil Green or people like that. So we were learning off of what we were, the people we were dealing with. So, all right, so I was like, Garcia, like, you got some of this knowledge. We need to apply it so that we could do it in-house. And then we started doing it. And then a little bit later, separate from that, but parallel, when the mixtape game started dying out, in my opinion, and it kind of got taken over by like artists doing mixtapes. And that became what a mixtape was defined as, artists doing like a project, and CDs and the internet. I was like, this ain't the same mixtape game that I'm from.
Yeah.
I saw the future in visual content. And we already had our site, which we had since 94, crazyhood.com. And at that time, the blogging era started popping off. And I looked at the blog as like a form of a mixtape.
Yeah.
You curate what's on there, and it's like, kind of like a mixtape in a sense. So I was like, all right, I want to do like original content. And I started this thing called DJ EFN's visual mixtapes, where I would like just film like videos for freestyles and different things like that. And I was like one of the first DJs to start doing visuals. I even had a double disc. The second disc was a DVD that had all stuff, and it came out like in 2000. So,
wow.
So that was the trajectory. And then fast forward a little bit further, I create. I'm still seeing the future in visual content, and I'm going in that direction. So we create Crazy Hood Film Academy, which is just a company for our film stuff, and we do this film, Coming Home, Cuba.
Right.
It's Coming Home. It's the first one, but it's we will go to Cuba, and this, we can get into it if you want, but this spawned a series, which is the Coming Home series, which right now I'm in post-production for the 6th film in South Africa that we went to South Africa. And I'm in a bunch of conversations with a lot of pretty big people in terms of taking this to the next level, because up to now it's completely been independent. I've completely funded it myself, and it's been completely independent.
That's awesome, bro.
That's crazy.
How do you decide, like, from being a mixtape DJ to like, yo, I want to do films, and like I'm gonna put them in festivals, and I'm gonna...
Dude, out of necessity. everything that we've done is out of necessity to keep the dream alive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like every branch that grew from the Crazy Hood tree was all about how do we stay in this game? Like how do we fund the endeavors that don't make money? We love making music. We love, doing all these different things, but the music isn't necessarily paying the bills. So how do we fund these things? How do we have an office and an overhead and not make, we got to make money. So I start CHP marketing and promotions and got big into the marketing and promotion game. I start consulting for people. We get into filmmaking, like whatever. And as long as it feels like natural to me and it's not like a stretch, because I don't like when people like, they go from one extreme to the other, or they abandon ship on one idea because they think this idea is going to make them bread. Like, this is not about making bread. I did this film as an amateur with Garcia, really for personal reasons, to follow my family roots in Cuba and visit Cuba, which I never thought I would ever do. Being raised as a South Florida, Cuban American, that's not like the thing you do. You don't go to Cuba. Yeah. It's no, And I was like, nah, I want to go. Then I said, when I'm going to go, I'm going to connect with the hip hop heads out there and see what the hip hop community is like out there. And I'm going to take my friends and we're going to film it, come back, put it together. And the film gets, great reviews, goes to film festivals, gets picked up by Revolt TV. When they launch, it's the first acquisition, the first original content besides like music videos. It's the first acquisition that they get. They license the film from me. I'm like, this is unbelievable. And then I just said, this is another, I really love doing these. I want to continue to do them. And that's what we do.
It's kind of like you're just using the resources you have for things that you're passionate about.
Yeah. And keep evolving, because you can't stay in the same place. Like I'm not necessarily out there as an active DJ anymore, but man, I put in so much work. You're never taking the DJ out of DJ EFN, but you got to evolve. You got to, I'm really big proponent of like hip hop maturing and maturing gracefully, and not because you reach an age or you reach a time, like you got to get out. Like, nah, you create a lane for yourself. You make yourself relevant where it makes sense, and you keep moving.
Yeah. I love that you said that, especially like now with everything that's happening in 2020, like, I think a lot of DJs are realizing like, yo, all I had was DJing. And now I don't got it. Like, what do I do? So like, and we're always like talking about promoting it, like, doing multiple things and having your hands in other things doesn't mean that you're not still a DJ.
Absolutely.
And like, for sure, I mean, I've like thought about that in the past where I'm like, okay, I love DJing, but I don't want to just DJ. I want to be more than a DJ. But I would always get stuck in that, like, nah, I need the next gig. I need the what's next. Well, that guy has got that club. Why am I not there?
And there's so many things that go hand in hand, like film. Film is so close to music, and it's visuals, and it's just art. It's all art. So it all comes together, and we're like that's what I was gonna get at earlier. Like, there's DJs that are so just like pigeon, like the only thing that's the only thing, but. It took the pandemic for some people to realize like, yo, I can be doing, or I should be doing so much more. Right. And you're always doing the most, So what are other things that you would have never, like 20 years ago, you were like, oh, I never thought I was gonna do a film, or like
podcast.
Right. Yeah, podcasting for sure.
Yeah. How were like, because you were a DJ, mixtapes, films, and Nori was like a rapper, artist. How did you guys decide like, okay, we could do this podcast thing? Or it's a good idea?
So I had an office not too far from here, a few blocks that way. It was a warehouse, and when Nori, after his reggaeton album, I was never into reggaeton, and he knew that. Actually, when he told me, he spit a verse off his reggaeton album before anybody knew he was doing reggaeton, and I thought he was clowning.
Yeah,
So he finished that album, and for whatever reason, the hip hop community at the time turned their backs on him, like the mainstream, like English hip hop community. And then whatever, he decided to move to Miami. And I remember him kind of basically telling me, yo, he looked at me as like a hip hop purist, which I don't necessarily say that I am or I'm not, and he also knew that I wasn't into reggaeton. So he's like, yo, bring me back to hip hop. And so he started working, he moved to Kendall. Wow. And he started working out of my studio every day. We were making records, doing freestyles, and doing interviews. Like we basically like got him back into the fray of hip hop, the hip hop related news and stuff. And at that same time, shout out to this dude Leo G, homie Leo G. He was at XM Radio. He had a station called 66 Raw on XM before the merger. Mm-hmm. He's like, yo, you guys want to do some satellite radio? You could do it from here. We don't usually let people do it outside of our studios in DC, but I could work it out and you guys could send it in. All right, cool. So we started doing XM radio out of my studio. And that shit was just like Drink Champs, just less guests. Because who the fuck was gonna come to Kendall? And we weren't really like popping like that, you know. And
you were going off the riff, like you had.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we had like Fat Joe might have came through and a couple people, but it wasn't like how Drink Champs is. So, and then we were there we did that for like 2-3 years after the merger. XM, we were on 66 Raw, we were on Hip Hop Nation, we were on Backspin, and I think another network. And Nori ended up doing an album with Capone again. He went on tour to Europe. I was managing M.I.A, and we got signed to Strange Music, and they got really busy on tour. So we both got really busy, and we couldn't do that show anymore. And we weren't making a dime off of it. We were doing it for fun. And I was like, man, I really enjoyed doing that show. I would love to do it again. My homie, who's from out here too, Godfrey, he had a podcast called Gamertag Radio. And he had been doing podcasting since the beginning. He was always advocating to me like, yo, you should podcast. That thing you had with Nori, you guys should do as a podcast. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I knew what a podcast was, but I knew that it wasn't big in hip hop and it was kind of looked at like this nerdy thing that computer nerds did. Yeah. So I stepped to Nori and he didn't know what a podcast was. Mm-hmm. So he was like, I don't know, whatever. He didn't really pay mind to it. It took like a few years to really, like other people started hitting him up. Like, yo, you should do a podcast. And he's like, talk to EFN. You know, you guys should do that as a pod. Talk to EFN. A couple times I had serious convos and Nori still wasn't ready. And I kind of looked dumb. And I'm like, yo, my bad, man. I don't know. This dude's just not with it. So it took a few years, and finally he did a podcast with a podcaster that reminded him of him, like it was a street dude. And he was like, oh, okay, this
you got a taste of it.
Yeah, I could see myself doing this, you know? And then he comes back to me, he's like, yo, E, I'm ready. So it's parallel to all of that, going back to the studio sessions, we would drink a lot, you know, in our office. And we had this term in my crew that if you couldn't handle your liquor, you're not a drink champ. And we would say that a lot, like, oh, you ain't a drink champ. You ain't a drink champ. So much that Nori ended up doing a track called Drink Champ, produced by The Alchemist back then. He recorded it in the studio. And I loved that term so much. I was like, man, I wonder if anybody has a .com on this shit. Because, man, that could be anything. That could be a bar. That could be clothing line. I don't know. It just sounds dope. Drink Champ, Drink Champs. I grabbed Drink Champ and Drink Champs. It was available. I got it. Like, okay, dope. I grabbed the Twitter handle. I grabbed the Instagram when it was available. Shit, I might even have the MySpace back then for that shit. Right. You know? And then I ended up trademarking and copywriting, and a little fast forward, I had my boy Scam, who's a legendary, you know, graphic artist and MC, do the logo. And so when Nori said he was ready, and again, I'm condensing a long story. Nori's like an impatient dude when he's ready. He's like, yo, he's ready. You gotta catch that fire.
You were ready to go.
And I was like, and he had named our other show. Our other show's name was Militainment Crazy Raw Radio.
Wow, that's a tough.
He wanted to add everybody's name in the. I said, I'm naming this motherfucker. Yeah. So I tell him, yo, I got this ready to go, and he wasn't even sure of it. He's like, I said, drink. He's like, all right, fuck it, let's do it. And I was like, yo, I got the logo, I got everything. All right, let's do it. And the rest is history.
Damn. So that's what year was that?
2016. March 2016. We're about to head into our 6th year, I believe.
Wow.
Doing it in March.
And when you guys first started, how was it like right off the bat? You guys were hitting it off, like the chemistry was there, or you guys?
Well, I mean, the whole premise of it was we had already done this, so we already knew what our chemistry was, and we have history, you know. And my approach to it is the approach on stage with it, or the relationship between a DJ and an MC. Anyways, I'm the DJ, you're the rapper. You know, you're gonna be in front in a sense, and I'm gonna be kind of playing the background. All good, you know. I'm co-creator, executive producer, all good. Like, there's no ego thing in that. Yeah. And you know, and it's Nori. He's a fucking legend. So I knew what it was, and I knew the dynamic, so I was cool with it. But we already knew each other and how we are. You know, like we got each other, and the way that it popped for us is that my boy Godfrey had came back into the fold, and he had just got a distribution deal for his podcast with CBS Radio. And I told Nori, what do you think about CBS? And he's like, oh, that sounds big.
CBS network.
Yeah, he said we don't care what it just sounds big. Let's do it, you know. So we go to New York. We meet up with CBS. Rap Radar was on CBS at the time, and they said we need a demo. We need a pilot episode to see if we even get it or like it. Imagine. So we did 2. We did the Fat Joe episode and Kenny Anderson. Kenny Anderson was first actually, but we ended up putting out Fat Joe first. We sent it to them. They're like, "Yo, this is dope." And then I asked them, "Yo, so how many listens do we need?" Because we just were doing it as a hobby, like a side gig. I just wanted it to make a little money because the other thing we did never made money. I just wanted to pay some overhead of doing it.
Right.
I was like, "So how many listens do we need to just make something?" And they're like, "Well, if you can get between 30 and 60,000 listens per episode within a couple weeks time, the one episode within a couple weeks time, you can make a couple $1,000s a month on advertising."
Did you have any knowledge of like how advertisement and like that business worked?
A little bit. I mean, I think the model was similar to radio, so I kind of got it, you know, like common sense getting it. And then I'm like, all right, cool. So the goal is like to make to 60,000 listens, right? So we put out, we knew we were gonna release it a certain week in March, and we had started filming from the beginning, even though in the beginning it was just audio, but I already knew I wanted it to be a visual thing too. So I had a camera crew already there, but mainly for promo clips.
Right.
And so we put out some promo clips, and that week I ended up going to South by Southwest. And I remember in South by Southwest, people being like, "Yo, you and Nori got some shit, right, going on. I seen it online." I'm like, "Oh shit." It's like a buzz.
The buzz was out, yeah.
Off of a couple clips we released. And I'm like, "Yo, something sounds crazy here." And then the first episode drops, and bro, we 300,000 the first week.
Holy shit.
Ended up clocking in at 1 million, like by, you know, like within a short time.
Got to renegotiate those numbers.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there was a different, just to be completely transparent, there was a different way that the data was kind of like counted back then.
Mm-hmm.
They've fixed it now. Like Apple had to fix something because it actually inflated everybody's numbers because every time you stopped and started, it counted it as a listen.
Oh, wow.
But everybody was going by that. Yeah. So
everything was even.
It was even.
The scale,
yeah. And then when it scaled back, everybody got scaled back, right. You know? But it was like, yo, and CBS was like, like they didn't know what to do. They couldn't even, nobody expected it. We didn't even expect it. And we just became out the box, like, you know, hit out of nowhere, you know, and they couldn't even sell advertising on it because it was so fast, you know, right out the gate growth. Right. It was so big. And then we were an unproven show that because they were using their CBS radio advertising sales team, they were like, what do we do? What do we do with this? Like, how do we sell this? They're supposed to be getting this amount of money because of their numbers. They have no track record and they're talking crazy. Yeah. You know, they're talking about smelling girls' buttholes and how many abortions have you had? Like, we can't sell this. Yeah. And it took 6 months for us to get the first paycheck.
Crazy.
But it was a good paycheck by the time it came, but it took 6 months.
It's crazy.
Damn. So they had like network execs kind of trying to do your market or your deals, like the ad rev and all that.
They had because CBS radio was their radio, like regular radio. Mm-hmm. And then they were also dealing with the podcast department. So they were doing the sales. They would have these things. I forgot what they're called, man. Upfronts. You ever heard of upfronts?
Maybe.
Upfronts are these like conferences. They have them for TV, radio, podcasting. And basically it's like a conference where each network presents the shows. Yeah, they let the advertisers or the advertising firms meet the podcast hosts, and you know, it's like whining and dining people, and then people like start to commit like on handshakes, like, yeah, I want to advertise with this or just give you, because sometimes they'll advertise with a specific podcast, or in the case of like CBS Radio, they'll bundle
like a package.
Yeah, like okay, give us such and such amount of money, we'll spread it out. Yeah, but they just didn't know how to sell us specifically. You know, they were scared, they were nervous.
And I think, I mean, back then maybe you weren't sure if you needed that or not, but now, I mean, they see your product and they know like you could do that yourself. You will not, but just not. Maybe you don't have the reach or the relationship.
No, the advertising shit is still like I'm trying to like I'm always outspoken about fixing it for podcasting.
Yeah,
but it's still an old school system because what it is I'm a brand, a big brand like Kellogg's.
Right.
I give an advertising firm X, Y, and Z money. This advertising firm then goes and spreads this money out to different like networks. So they'll go to CBS Radio, they'll go to Spotify, and they'll commit a certain amount of dollars. And then Spotify will probably give them a list of podcasts, and they'll probably like, I'm sure they have a system like, yeah, this category or this, we want these specific shows to be included. And it's just like this old school system of how these big advertising, it's just, it's the same as if you would go back 20, 30 years, probably, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to radio. But they're starting to change it because I think with podcasting, it has to change. Like they used to make us do live reads during the show.
What?
With the guest on?
Yeah. Well, we never did it good because we're drunk. And Nori would say some wild shit. Like I'd be like, let's just, for an example, Modelo. Let me not use any brand. Let me use my own. Let's say Crazy Michi, you know, the best michelada. And Nori would be like, yeah, to fucking sniff cocaine afterwards. Because, you know, he was just eating shit. We could never do them. So it got to a point where I was like, I would do them and then try to sneak it in and like cut it in like if it was live, but they knew it wasn't. So I would tell people like the live reads just, and what sucks about live reads back then, they've changed it now, thank God. It was baked into the show. So how are you going to pay me for a certain time period to have an ad in my show, but then it's baked into my show for an eternity?
Yeah.
So if you listen to some of the first Drink Champs, like you're going to hear like Rocket Mortgage, you know, forever.
I remember.
By the way, your mortgage. Blah, blah, blah.
I remember listening to podcasts back in the day, like Rogan and all them, and I would always be like, "Why are they deciding to do this in the middle of the show?" And the guest is there, and he would be telling the guest,
super awkward.
Like, sorry, bro, but you know we got to pay the bills.
And it's awkward. But they've luckily changed that because now they have smart systems that insert your ad into the show and then take it out once that period that they pay for is done.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're trying to get the podcast game, bro. Come on.
That one, I'm taking notes on this one.
But how has so you guys have been doing this since 2016, right?
Right.
So how has the show kind of evolved? Like, are you guys? I mean, I'm sure in the beginning you were drinking on every episode. Like, are you still like you guys just go hard?
It's bad for our health, man.
It's still the same.
It's ridiculous.
Because I'm thinking like, man, damn, 4 years.
We always I always see like Nori being Nori, and you're like, again, you're always the one like getting back on track, but it's still like the insane. Just like,
if you really like watch, you'll notice there's like a point in the show where I get drunk because I'm there just chilling, enjoying the conversation, drinking. And then I get fucking lit, and then I start acting a little crazy. But we still, actually, if anything, we probably drink more now than we did before. Me personally, I used to be just liquor, rum mainly. I become a fucking big beer drinker now because my lady's into like craft beer and all this shit. So, and hence the micheladas too.
Right.
So I'm a big beer drinker, which is not any better at all because I'm drinking like a 12-pack on the show and taking mad shots of liquor. Because we're doing shots, so that's definitely not good. But we drink. The shit's legit. We could die. You know, it's not good. And I'm worried. I'm actually worried. I've been saying this lately. That I don't want our legacy in the end to be that we promoted alcoholism either.
Yeah.
You know, that's not what I want either for the show, for our legacy.
No, I think people just know it as like you guys are having a good time.
Yeah, and it's never like, because I've seen people try to do it or podcasts that have alcohol in them, and it's like it's not alcohol is the thing. It's like you guys are like one of my favorite episodes was with Pitt, and
that was a great episode.
You guys are just like kicking in the backyard, like talking old stories. Like
that's the point of the show, man.
And then obviously if there's liquor involved, it makes it a little more fun and interesting. But like it's that vibe of like, yo, I haven't seen you in forever. Like, what's up? I remember this. I remember that. Like. That's what the show's about.
It's always a natural flow of you guys just literally telling stories, you know, or you remember this, like the Pit one with like the Tarazana story.
And then you think it's one thing, and then he's like, no, what are you talking about? It's like,
Nori made up a whole other story in his mind, man.
But you guys must have gotten like crazy like liquor opportunities, right? When you first started?
Yo, you would think so, but that's the last opportunities that came to us. I mean, outside of like Ciroc, and people that are kind of related to our partners. But man, I was fucking going off on CBS Radio. Like, how do we not have a bunch of liquor sponsors? But you know what it is? It made sense. They're like, you guys are reckless.
Yeah.
Liquor already has enough legal problems in their lives. They don't need to sponsor a show and then you guys do some crazy shit that, it goes backwards on them. And that's what it is. Or someone from the show, God forbid, gets in a car accident anything.
Something.
And I got it. Like, I get why we're a Scary Show sponsor.
I mean, drink is in the title.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after like all these like last 4 years, has it gotten I guess more difficult, since now it's like, okay, you guys are like a pretty well proven show and successful show, and now it's kind of an obligation, not like in a bad way, but you gotta do it consistently now because you have people that are depending on you. Has that like been hard to kind of, because in the beginning it's for fun,
Right.
and then it turns into like, all right, it's a job.
I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that anything that you have to do repetitively and be contractually, that's a job, becomes a job. And that's facts. There's some days that I prefer not to be, have to go to do Drink Champs, especially now that I have a family. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I have to check myself and be like, yo, you're lucky, be grateful. Like, who the fuck gets to fucking make money drinking and talking shit with some of your idols, some of the people you grew up on, some of your peers, like, this is dope. So, but again, like, I think it's just human that eventually if it becomes like a regular thing, you're like, it's my job now, and it kind of takes away from the fun. But nah, man, it's still dope. It's still fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad gig for sure.
For sure, not a bad gig at all.
I was gonna ask you what your favorite guests, memorable moments, something that's, I don't know, like the story, somebody that doesn't know about Drink Champs, like something that you tell them, like, oh, I like that. Oh, we had so and so on, and this happened. Like, what's one of those things?
Damn, man, the thing is with Drink Champs is I don't remember shit.
Yeah.
This is just 100% real. I don't go back and watch the show because that's dumb for me to. Why would I want to go watch myself drunk, talk, then
watch myself
and then
sober.
second guess myself later, like, oh man, then I really won't want to be there.
Yeah.
I have some like dope episodes that I think, like the 50 episode was dope.
Right.
We back in that time we used to film in Little Haiti, and he came by himself to the set, and this is a time frame where artists were like nervous to come to Drink Champs.
Yeah.
Like, we intimidated people because they thought, like, the drinking, they saw like the crew behind us, Nori asking crazy questions.
Like, you were coming and get like questioned, like,
right.
Yeah.
So, what it seemed is some people didn't understand that it was more of a, like, originally we were in the comedy category. That's the way I saw it. I see Drink Champs as a comedy show.
Yeah, like fun.
Yeah. We're not a fucking Jay Leno or Q&A or fucking any, like David Letterman. We're not that. If you want that, you got to go somewhere else. We're more about having fun. So 50 came to the episode by himself, and he understood, like, you could tell he understood what Drink Champs was. And what was dope about him is he doesn't drink, and he drank because he's smart and he had a liquor to promote, and he took like 3 or 4 shots, which got him smashed because he doesn't drink.
Yeah.
And he had fun with the show. So when there's people that come on and they have fun with the show, those are the best episodes. And the comedians, which are naturally going to have fun with the show, they're the best because they start clowning everybody in the room and they start having jokes. The like Marlon Wayans and Mike Epps and Jack Thriller, like those are awesome.
So you guys never went back and edited anything out?
There's been a few edits, I'm not gonna lie, throughout the years. We edit something out if it's gonna get someone in a legal bind. We edit,
but like for yourself, since you don't remember.
Rarely.
Right.
I probably should, I probably should edit shit out. Like, every once in a while we might say like, oh, I don't know. Like I said, there's very specific things that we'll want to edit, but no, I don't. I try to just forget about the show. Once I do it,
that's the best way.
Behind me, keep it moving. It'll probably come to haunt me later. Like, my kids will probably be like, you drunk, Dad? Look at you. How the hell you going to tell me not to go and drink?
Do you ever think about that? Like, there's like all this archive footage of me for years and years that my children can just look up. And
not just footage, even the music that we were putting out. Like now that I'm a father, I have a daughter and a son, and they're young. I'm just like, yo, holy shit, this could be used against me by my kids. Or it could be a bad example. But I mean, I'm very into like the creative, like, mind frame and understanding and art, and that art should never be limited or should be censored. So I'm gonna try to teach them that, like, hey, it is what it is. This is the way we expressed ourselves. Maybe looking back, I might be like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have said that, but we were young and we did this, and I'll try to explain it as best as I can. you know, I'm gonna definitely try to get them to understand that expression is expression.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they see that their dad had a successful podcast.
I mean, it might not mean shit to them by that point. They'd be like, "Dad, what the fuck is that?" Like,
I mean, who knows what podcasting will be like?
you weren't a hologram yet? Like, oh man, that's old school shit, you know?
You guys sat down and talked to each other, or what?
You were there in person.
Did they?
What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say something dumb. Like, was it on the International Space Station? Like,
well, what do you think the future of Drink Champs, or what it's gonna evolve into, or it'll just be you guys drinking?
I don't know, bro. What the future? I mean, Drink Champs is gonna be Drink Champs always. Like,
right.
What it is now is what it's always gonna be. I mean, what's dope is that we evolved from an audio only podcast. For me, at its heart, it's always a podcast. You know? But then it went to become a TV show for real, like, you know, on TV, and it became this big thing on digital, which is YouTube, and also on Tidal. And we've done these deals that have been game changers for all podcasters, I believe. And what's dope for me, being just Miami kid, just trying to contribute to the Miami scene, is I'm a part of this like cultural phenomenon that contributed to the entire scene globally, in a sense. Because I just, like I said, I'm coming home, South Africa's in post-production. I'm walking in the middle of South Africa and people recognize me from Drink Champs. That's fucking insane to me. You know, so I couldn't ask for anything better as a kid from Kendall, just trying to like be cool in Kendall. You know?
Right.
So to me, that's insane, man. And I feel like we're doing a positive, you know, we're inspiring people to, like, we've inspired all these artists to do podcasts. Like, I do feel it's directly correlated to Drink Champs, because a lot of the artists that have podcasts now
100%
came to us first. We were going to create a podcast network to put them out. And we didn't have our shit together, and they went off to do their own thing, which is completely fine. I think that's dope that we've helped artists find other ways to create revenue. Just like you're saying, for DJs to find ways to evolve, the artists needed that as well, or anybody needs that within the culture. And I'm glad that we're a part of that movement.
Not for sure. And I mean, like we said, we appreciate it, because I mean, especially in Miami, I feel like it's a lot of people get one-sided, one way minded, and only want to do one thing, and they're like, nah, like, podcast, that's whack, or like. But now we get people that hit us up like, yo, how do we go about doing this and that? And we're like, we told you should have been doing a podcast. But so talk to us about what you got coming up. I know you got a michelada right there.
I got the michelada coming out officially next year. It's for anybody that doesn't know, it's like a beer drink. It's mainly popular within the Mexican community and on the West Coast. But it's just a dope way to drink beer and anything else. A lot of people drink it with other things, and it's like a Bloody Mary beer. That's a lame way of saying it, but that's like the easy way of saying it. Yeah, so it has like a spicy rim, and it has a spicy mix in it, and you put ice in beer or ice in juice or whatever the fuck you want.
I was saying that it's the best for hangovers and like
it's dope.
Hair of the dog. It's like the hair of the dog trigger. Like in Nicaragua, every morning, like during the holidays when you're out partying, the next day you wake up, michelada, boom, and then you're back to it. So it's awesome.
It's dope. So I'm really happy about that, because I really became a michelada connoisseur. I don't know if I've mentioned, or you guys know, I'm originally born in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have family in LA. I came here when I was really young. But my family in LA put me on to micheladas a long time ago. And then my girl's she's from LA. She moved to Miami to be with me. So she was already into micheladas, and then, like I told you, she's into beer. So like everything came crashing down to get into this business. Yeah. And so we're creating a whole line around. It's called the Crazy Michi. You know, Crazy Hood, Crazy Michi, and it's a funny story with the Michi person. There's a character that I can't even get into it, but Crazy Michi, and it's a whole line. We're gonna have the dips that you could dip your beer cans into. We're gonna have my own flavored like recipes, the mix that you can put in, and you can make it with or without the cup. We're gonna have candies that come with it. Nice. And shout out to the Go Michi Co., which you'll be hearing a lot about them. This company is pretty much the biggest company in like the michelada cups. Yeah,
because I've never seen the actual cups. I've seen the little bottles that they sell of like the mix and whatever and all the other. But the fact that you have the rim and then it's just literally two process. You open it, take everything out, put the beer in, and that's it. That's super
so I'm super excited about that. And then I'm also a part of a company from out here in Miami called Colombian White, which is Colombian Aguardiente.
Yeah, I've had it. It's pretty good.
Thank you, bro.
I met the guys a while back, and after they launched it, I saw that y'all were on, and they were pitching you guys.
About to say, you gotta have some sort of alcohol.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I want to get into a rum because rum was originally my thing. I'm trying to think what other products. I'm involved in a couple other things, but besides that, other podcasts, I'm developing a bunch of podcasts, and I have one that we just did a new deal for, which is Fatherhoods.
Right.
Fatherhood is basically, to put it simple, it's like a hip hop parenting, based on, fathers, podcast. And we have like other artists and people within the industry talk about being fathers, which is really dope because I feel like we in hip hop, males in hip hop get a bad rap. We look like we're, deadbeat dads or whatever. Yeah. And that's not true. And so we're talking, and we talk to mothers as well. We've had Angie Martinez on there, Moni Love, and different people. So that I'm very proud of that podcast. And I'm developing like 3 or 4 other podcasts that I'm producing and developing, and we got other show ideas and other things that we're doing, documentaries besides Coming Home. But Coming Home is right, is my big deal right now.
So you got a lot on the plate, in other words.
A lot on the plate, too much when you have 2 little kids at the crib. Yeah, that's my new thing, man. And learning that balance with the kids is incredible,
How have you been able to manage that? Because I mean,
I'm not. I'm just being real. It's
because you've been a grinder since like 7, 16, 15, 14. So now you got
a grinder that I purposely didn't have kids to grind.
Right.
Like that was on purpose. I knew how to use a condom.
Yeah.
My friends going back to high school, I got godkids that are 22 years old.
Right.
They didn't know how to use condoms apparently. So yeah, on purpose I didn't have kids so that I can do the grind. And now I have the kids, and now I'm like, it stops me in my tracks. But they're my priority. They're the first thing that I deal with. The first thing I think about in the morning, last thing I think about at night, and beyond all this shit, they're the most important thing. So everything I do now is legacy related to my kids, and I wouldn't stop grinding because I want to teach them to grind. Like look, you don't stop, you keep going. This is what you do. So now it's just a different motivation.
Yeah, it's like a different mindset of a grind, because now you're like, I need to make sure like they're good, and also what I leave behind they see and they respect. And that's just like blind, like I need to do everything because fuck it.
Right. No,
but it's more focus.
Yeah, and it's just right now it's just a tough period because I have a 2.5-year-old and I have a 6-month, and those are tough ages, and there's no sleep, and it's crazy. So it's crazy specific to the age, but
it's a crazy hood in your house,
right?
Yeah.
Well, we'll get you out of here because I know you're busy. You're
busy guy.
If you had any inspiring words or any little gems for someone trying to find their own lane or find their way in this DJ creative artist game that's really crazy right now.
Wow. I mean, might sound corny and typical to say like follow your heart and your passion, but I truly mean that. Like follow it, but have set up realistic goals.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I see a lot of young people, and not just young people even my fucking age, that they have these ridiculous expectations, or I'm still gonna, like, I have a friend who's fucking 45 years old. Yeah, man, I'm gonna get rich. I'm rich how, motherfucker? Yeah. How you gonna get rich?
Yeah, what's your plan?
I don't know, but I saw The Secret, and I'm gonna think that shit into existence. Yeah. I'm like, well, this thinking's not gonna go anywhere, bro.
We know some of those.
So I would just say, like, follow your heart, follow your passion, but put a plan together, execute a plan. Like, really and truly, everything I've done has been a plan. Not everything has worked. There's failures. You got to be able to take the failures and keep it moving. Most people have failures and it ends them, because it's devastating, man. Especially when you're in the world of being creative in arts, because you put your heart out there. Usually, if you're being creative, it's like, this is my idea, and you put it in front of people, and they're like, it's whack. You're like, fuck, I'm never putting my idea out there again. So just put a plan together, and I always try to tell people like. Put the plan and then give it a certain time frame, and then evaluate. It doesn't mean you end it. You evaluate it at a certain point, and you say, okay, is it giving me results? Do I like where I'm at? Maybe it's not getting paid, but maybe you got a certain audience. Maybe you met some people in your network that you didn't know before. Okay, it's worth continuing the goal, like continuing the whatever strategy you put together. And then, that's how you do it, little by little, and then diversify, which is what I did. I'm only speaking from my perspective. You diversify so that within the realm of what you're doing, so that you can keep the dream alive. And don't be afraid to say, okay, well, I'm good at marketing. Okay, I want to go market. Or maybe you're a bartender. Maybe you're good at bartending, and you gotta don't be afraid of a fucking job either. I can't be seen out there because I'm a rapper or I'm a model. But nobody knows you, bro. Go. It's nothing wrong with a side gig or a side hustle or none of that shit. Fund your hustle. Ultimately, however you got to fund your hustle, fund your hustle.
Keep the dream alive.
Yeah,
man. I like that. Well, yo, EFN.
Thank you, brother.
It's been a pleasure, brother. If you could plug in, I'm sure everyone knows where to find you, but
crazyhood.com for everything, drinkchamps.com for everything, drinkchamps, at Who's Crazy Instagram, at DJ EFN Twitter.
Awesome, bro. Well, it's episode 100.
Woo!
We did it, bro.
We made it.
100 shots after this.
Hey, shit.
We got to take a shot because we're with the drink champ, bro.
For real. Yeah.
We'll take a
I
shot.
don't really drink anymore.
We'll
but
take a Mama Juana
I
shot.
might take one.
Zay hasn't drank in 9 months.
Well, I don't want to fucking kick you off the wagon. Because
Drink champs, bro. All right,
we out.
We out of here.
Peace.
Oh, man. Drink champs, bro.